Hello, I'm a member of the Debian kernel team, and I'm also involved in kernel development upstream. And currently, I maintain the 3.2 stable branch. So, sort of a summary of how Linux stable releases work at the moment. Probably most of you know most of this, but after every stable release from Linux 3.x, there are a series of updates to that, usually by Greg Crow-Hartman, number 3.x.y. And these will have cherry-picked bug fixes, sometimes new hardware support if it doesn't take a very big change to do that. Sometimes the fixes need to be backported because the kernel APIs have changed. And these updates continue at least until Linux releases the next, Linux makes another release. And some versions are used as a base. Some Linux versions become the basis for a long-term stable branch, which can be maintained for several years. So that's how the stable update process works. The mailing list for this, it's quite high traffic, stable@vigo.kernel.org. Every commit to Linux that has a CC to this list in its commit message ends up being, it's a candidate for inclusion in stable updates. Greg runs scripts that will actually copy those to the list once Linus has pulled those changes into his tree. And it also reports, did it get applied to certain branches, and if it failed because the code context has changed. And anyone can nominate a change that ought to go into stable updates. Once it's reached Linus's tree, there's a file in the source tree, documentation/stableKernelRules.txt, and that explains what the rules are for what's acceptable. And occasionally there are regressions because some change that got applied to a stable branch didn't really belong there, or it should have been adjusted and it wasn't. But otherwise everything has to be in Linus's tree first. So the maintainer of a stable branch will collect up changes for some period of weeks, and will then send these out as a batch for review before making a release. Those go to the mailing list. They also get sent to everyone named in the original commit. And the review is supposed to catch things like, this isn't needed here because the bug doesn't exist, or this change is only going to work if you take these other changes that it depends on, or this has caused regression when we applied it in mainline and it's not yet fixed there, in which case once there's a second fix is available, we can take both of those into a stable branch. Following the review, that list of changes might need to be revised, and then the maintainer can can apply them to the Git branch, tag it, and if the maintainer is not Greg, then they need to get Greg to pull, and he then uploads to kernel.org. So what does this mean for distributions? How many people here work on their distributions kernel packaging? Okay. That's a little bit. Okay. So So as a package maintainer, of course, you want to get bug fixes as soon as possible, at least if they're important enough for the stable updates. And also probably you get bug reports directly from your users. You report them upstream. Maybe you find a fix that's already been made and needs to be backported. Maybe you even write the fix. And stable updates should be a way of showing those fixes between distributions. So do you send fixes to? Do you nominate fixes for stable updates? Do you know about the process? Yeah.
I did it once, but I screwed it up because I didn't find the. So I once had a fix, but it didn't apply to the stable kernel because we had another patch that was needed before.
And was it clear how to fix that up? You know that you should both of them, or was the other fix too big?
Possibly, but I didn't invest into it because I'm not really a kernel developer.
Okay, yeah. Was there anyone else who's actually active in kernel packaging? Okay. This isn't going to be a very interesting talk then, isn't it? We're hoping to have more, get more response from the audience. So, yes, so distributions have stable releases that normally get maintained for a period of years and not for the 2 or 3 months between kernel releases. So that means though that a long-term stable branch is quite important, or useful at least. Past, well, in fact, it's still active today. The Linux 2.632 branch was used as the basis for a bunch of long-term supported distributions. And that seems to have worked out quite well. Lots of fixes. I counted over 3,500 changes went into that branch, mostly bug fixes. But there hasn't been quite as much. The other long-term branches don't seem to have been shared between so many distributions, probably because release schedules didn't really line up, but also because I don't think there's a lot of. Maybe they could have lined up if we'd actually talked about plans and try to settle on a common base version for releases. So I have no one to ask now.